Hey everybody, Microplastic Messiah back, episode 4, and my last one was a little dark, but say Livy, such is life. Um, let's see, there's an obvious news story that is in the headlines right now is the whole Charlie Kirk thing, so I figure I'll just get that out of the way right away, rip that damn bandage off. Long story short, don't celebrate someone dying, like no matter what your political affiliations are. No one should die because of their idea, or no one should have to die because of their ideas. Like historically, I know that people do, and that's not cool. Especially because a lot of the times the people getting assassinated are people who are telling us to, like each other better, like Jeebus and MLK and John F. Kennedy and stuff. So, for the record, I don't want to get shot for having an opinion that someone disagrees with. So, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts there. So I had some notes, but they were in a little book, and I don't know where that is. So I recorded some notes on my phone. One kind of jumps out right away is there's a quote called that goes, "A child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." And yeah, I think that's a pretty on the nose quote given everything that's been going on. And yeah, it's crazy because obviously we don't know the specifics of what happened with that particular assailant, but I'm sure that'll come to, you know, we'll figure it out as time goes on. I'm sure that'll be made public, but I think a lot of it's just kind of stems from we have vast swaths of people who are just so uninspired, They don't, there's nobody really, there's no inspirational figures really right now, other than maybe the Nepalese. Okay, I should probably dial back a little bit. My last few episodes have been kind of pretty against, the current paradigms. And yeah, fair. The current paradigms are kind of messed up. But in my utopian view of the future, there's room for everybody, I don't want it to be this either or kind of thing where it's either we have pure capitalism, which we don't even have right now because we socialize the losses of capitalism, or we have just absolute pure whatever the left wing version would be. Basically, I want there to be a place for everybody. And I know in my last few episodes I've kind of railed against wealthy people, and I'm I don't really have anything against people wanting to accumulate, if you want to work hard, if you put hard work in, you should be rewarded for it. But I just think there should be a line in the sand, kind of. There needs to be higher level conversations about it, not just me rambling in my bed, just hanging out on a Sunday night. I think my big worry is if you look at what happened with, say, the Russian Revolution and the French Revolutions, they started off with people being subjugated and they wanted to not be slaves anymore. Like that Les Mis song, was it? Singing the song of angry men. You know that song, whatever. But yeah, that's all well and good. But after the French Revolution and the Russian Revolutions, there was a lot of violence. The revolutionaries were chopping people's heads off so much, a lot, until they had to round up the ringleader who was chopping everybody's head off and chop his head off. I'm always worried about the cure being worse than the illness, if that makes sense. I'm all for change, but not if it comes at the expense of a bunch of people's lives. If you look at what happened in Nepal, there's no way that doesn't scare the establishment, because I think that they know that that's what will happen in any other country where they shut the internet off, because the internet is kind of the main distraction a lot of people have. So if you take that one last distraction away, then people are going to realize how bad they've been getting screwed, and then it'll end up being a proper revolution like the Nepalese have had, which is fascinating. But unfortunately, there was some violence from what I heard. I don't advocate for violence, but if you I think Gandhi was and the other, okay, there's two figures that jump out. Is Gandhi, obviously, because, he famously had a nonviolent revolution that kind of got rid of England. And now the English are all up in arms because they're against having foreigners on their soil, which I find to be sad. Like, I want it to be funny, and it is, because it's incredibly ironic that the British, who colonized pretty much everybody, are being all pissy about foreigners on their land. That is hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. But the whole situation's kind of lame. And then, what was the other one? It was, oh yeah. And the other one is George Washington. Like, I recently had a little bit of a hyperfixation on him, and he is, like, a really interesting guy, like, from what I've read. Obviously, some of it's embellished. Like, he wasn't perfect by any means. Like, he was a slave owner and that kind of stuff. But the main thing that I really appreciate about George Washington was it seemed like he was begrudgingly taking power. Like, he didn't want to. And he was obviously very good at what he did because he, like, inspired, like, even though the American early military wasn't doing great, like, his men stuck beside him. And I think to do that, you have to, like, to have that kind of loyalty from soldiers, you have to show that you're taking care of them, especially with all the stuff they had to go through back then. Like, my goodness. Like, and then to get to that point where you actually win against England, and then they say, you know, well, you're going to be president, and him being like, nah, I'm good. Like, mad respect for that. Like, sometimes I wish we had a system where we could find the person most qualified but least willing to do the job. Like, and then tell them they can only leave when they've done the job, like, sufficiently or something like that. I would almost prefer that over these people who want the job, because honestly, kind of wanting the job is a red flag. But anyway, my point with the whole the village burning down thing was, like, we have vast swaths of just uninspired people, you know, and we're all going through the daily grind, just kind of doing our own thing. But there's so much talk around social injustice, like all the social justice stuff, and everyone's kind of divided against each other. And in those kinds of situations, it's super easy for anybody with any kind of direction to be able to round up large swaths of people to follow them and do whatever they want. You know, like, if you look at World War II, and like my kids always joke anytime I do a rant about history, I always say it goes back to World War II, but it always does because it was kind of a big deal. So, but in this case, it goes back to World War II because, like, the situation pre-World War II was, like, there was vast swaths of disaffected, unemployed Germans, and they needed a direction. So they flocked around the guy who gave it to them. It's obviously a very simplistic review, but it's just kind of using it as a tool to explain what I'm trying to talk about. Is like, there's, like, people keep talking about what indoctrinated you, and it's like, well, hopelessness, really. Like, people in hopeless situations are going to look for hope from anyone who can give it to them, and unfortunately, the people in the establishment are not doing that. Because I know in my, like, experience in the workforce, like, I would go to a job just to collect a paycheck, you know. None of it was really all that inspiring, and I never really felt like I was contributing to anything greater than myself, other than my boss's boss's boss being able to go on vacation or something, you know. And what does that do for me, you know? I don't want to just be a wage slave. Like, if I'm going to work, I want it to mean something, which it's hard to find these days. I want to help people, and I want to get into, like, mental health counseling and stuff, but I don't want to go back to school. I'm, like, 40, and I already have a day job that I like, and it took a long time to find my day job, so I don't really want to, like, you know, have to retrain like that this late. And I mostly just kind of want to share my experiences, but I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing here, but I'm just doing it for funsies. So let's see what other notes we have here. Oh yeah, I have a quote, and I don't really have any context for it, so I'm just going to squeeze it in here. Is the Mount Everest is covered in the bodies of highly motivated people. So I can't remember where I heard that quote exactly, but it makes me laugh because there's a bunch of people in the world who are telling you what to do and how to do it and why to do it. But when you look at the actual why, it's usually because they have something they want you to do and they want you to do it, you know? They're not really saying that for your well-being. Like, especially if you look at a lot of advertising, it'll be like, you should buy our pants. And it's like, are they good pants? Like, who gives a shit? They're pants. Buy our $50 pants because this famous person is wearing them. And if you wear them, you look like this famous person. And then that transfers over into like the motivation industry because it's constantly just like, oh, you gotta get the good car so you can get all the chicks. And then it's like, gotta get the fancy shoes so you can run fast. I don't know. You know what I mean? Just like constantly selling you on a weird vision. And it's like, you don't even ask, like, is this a vision I even care about? So then I use that quote that Mount Everest is covered in the bodies of highly motivated people because it's like, well, these were all people that were highly motivated and driven and they, worked really hard or in some cases got a Sherpa to carry them on their backs up that mountain and they didn't make it, I feel like it's just, you always got to intersperse a little bit of realism with your rose-tinted glasses. Because, if you listen to some of my other episodes where I drone on about how awesome it would be for Star Trek to be a thing, there's a lot of dark sides in Star Trek too. Like, it's nowhere near perfect. The reality is we're never going to have a perfect society per se, but we can have something a little better than what's going on right now. And like for all my previous like talk about, I had a section about oil lobbies and stuff. Like we are still going to need oil because we have a culture and a economy completely driven around oil products, oil-based products. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like I feel like we could get green energy to replace some of the oil, but like look around you, there's so much plastic and everything. Like, and it's so easy to work with. And for all the news articles I've seen touting replacement materials, I've never actually seen anything that has replaced plastic. But then that kind of brings up another thing, like a conspiracy theory, I guess, is that anytime there's an invention that can like harm one of the major industries, the government will come in and clamp down on it. So like there's all these stories about people who invent, say, clean energy or like a magnetic engine or something that could power your entire house. All of a sudden they get clumsy and trip out of windows, like those Russian generals I was talking about in another episode. Like, and those stories are unverifiable. That's why I'm like a mix of a conspiracy guy, I think. Is like, I know that some conspiracies are true. We know that because, the government's released the records on it. So I believe that it makes sense to be a conspiracy theorist because, conspiracies happen. But you should always be skeptical, too, of like why they want you to believe this particular theory because, even if you think about it, the government knows the conspiracy theorists are out there. So if they really wanted to like clamp down on conspiracy theorists, they would just put out a bunch of like wacky conspiracy theories to what do you call it, like make conspiracy theorists look stupid, which some of them are pretty good at doing. But anyway, this is kind of just a rant about being using critical thinking. Always be skeptical of what anybody's telling you, and especially if it conflicts with your observed reality, because like, yeah, I've seen that a lot where people just constantly rail on about like, oh, it's this way. And it's like, it's objectively not. Like, I can't think of a good example right now, but that's definitely been a thing. People keep telling me, oh, like being gay is a choice or whatever. And I'm like, if you think being gay is a choice, then maybe you're just not as straight as you think you are. Because like, I don't know, I'm not gay and I don't have to choose to do that. I'm pretty solid about it every day I wake up. Like, no offense to LGBTQ people, like I'm an ally if you want to call it that, but yeah, not a choice at all. So then it's like anyone who tries to convince you that it is, A, they're probably not as straight as they think, and B, yeah, they're just trying to sell you a line because they're uncomfortable with it. Another thing I saw I wanted to talk about was that the Hyundai plant in Georgia. I found that situation like sad for the people involved, obviously, but amusing to me, which seems to be a pattern in a lot of these stories. Like, I feel bad for the people involved, but it amuses me because it's not me. I'll probably say that until it is me. But anyway, so it was like the 500 Korean nationals working at a Hyundai plant in Georgia were detained by ICE and like exported back to their country. And then South Korea was like, "You asked us to send them over to help you build your plant." So like, there's a bunch of news stories going around that the plant's shutting down and costing Georgia 9,000 jobs, which is honestly kind of what the lady deserves, because I haven't seen it, but allegedly the lady who made the call um, was bragging about it online, and everyone was calling her a fucking idiot because it's like, congratulations, your racism just cost us 9,000 jobs. But no, apparently it's just delaying the opening of the plant by a few months, but I think it's funny. Like, it's two pretty big L's to take, like, calling that in the first place, just because you're that racist, and then possibly costing your state thousands of jobs because you're so racist. Like, it's ridiculous. In unfortunately sad news too, there was a warrant. I don't know how to say his name. There was a Canadian Hole, Hohl, Hole. I'm saying it's Hole. But yeah, he was over in Latvia with the Canadian military, and he passed away. And like, he disappeared, and they were looking for him for a while, and he unfortunately passed away. And yeah, we found out today from his wife that he did commit suicide, which, given my previous episode, you might understand why that kind of sucks. I mean, it always sucks, but it just breaks my heart to hear that another family's going through it again. And I did a post a while back too. It was I've been seeing a pattern of just like, the tough guys, like the guys who don't talk about their feelings and they're all super manly and stuff. Yeah, they seem to be killing themselves a lot. Like, maybe not exclusively, but a lot of the time. And yeah, it really sucks. Like, there's a lot to unpack with that. But I think there's a lot of, I don't know the specifics of this guy's situation. All I know is like my own situations, but I think it just extends to hopelessness again. Like, again, I don't know his circumstances, but I feel like in my dad's situation anyway, like, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, he had a lot of stressors going on, and then he got some really unfortunate news, I'll say. His cup was already pretty full, and then he got a lot of unfortunate news all at once. And I think it's just, you reach that point where you just hit a wall of hopelessness. And then I've often thought, like, the last thought going through their heads is probably like, it'll only hurt for a minute. And then now my counterpoint is, yeah, for you. Like, and yeah, it's kind of selfish, I guess. I don't know how I feel about it still. It's been 5 years, but like, I always hear people say it's the coward's way out, but like, at the same time, we had a mental health brief at my job, and this dude was talking about how he couldn't find the courage to pull the trigger, like, during his speech. So I'm like, well, which is it? And yeah, I see so many news stories, like, not even like recent ones, like Chester Bennington and, Anthony Bourdain and, what's his name? Robin Williams, that's the one. But the one that always gets me is Chester Bennington, because I was a big Linkin Park fan. But now when I listen to his lyrics, it's like, okay, I think I get this now a lot more than I used to. And yeah, it's just kind of sad. We talk a lot about mental health, like, more than we used to, but I still feel like we're only barely through the front door of this particular topic. And I really don't think it's going far enough generationally to go back to some of the older guys who, unfortunately, I have been seeing a lot of. Like, I keep seeing obituaries posted. It's like, oh, this guy passed away, cause of death not listed. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. I know a lot of people don't need to advertise it, but if someone passes away of cancer, they don't tend to shy away from the fact that they had cancer. But a lot of the time, if you see a news article that's like, oh, this guy passed from unknown causes, it's like, oh, okay. And not every time, of course, but I don't know. Every time I read an obituary now, I'm just like, oh, okay, here's another one. And it's still like a thing that people don't want to talk about. Like even at that brief we were doing, people were saying like, what's a barrier to people talking about it? And I'm like, using the language, like people say that people unalive themselves all the time. And it just reminds me of Harry Potter a lot, because it's like Voldemort, you know? People were uncomfortable saying it so that nobody wanted to say it. But then when he came back, it was really hard to get people on your side because no one wanted to say it. Now, anyone who's read the books knows it's because the name's actually cursed. So there is actual background to that. But I feel like there's a lot of parallels to subjects in real life that people don't want to talk about. Especially, oh, what was that joke? It was like, oh yeah, it was a John Mulaney joke where he's like, calling someone a midget is as bad as calling someone the N-word. And then John Mulaney's like, no, it's not. You know how I can prove that? Because we can say the word midget, but we can't even say what the N-word is. And it kind of goes like that. Like, if we can't even call it what it is, which is suicide, then we can't really talk about it too much. And even just saying it now, it still makes me uncomfortable. And I don't want to be that guy who's just like running around like talking about it all the time, because that's just kind of a downer. But at the same time, like, it's been affecting my life on a pretty much daily basis, because if I see someone going through stuff, I feel pretty responsible for going to help. And it's kind of off-putting, honestly, sometimes, because sometimes I just don't even want to be around people, because the worst is if you're around someone who doesn't think they need help, you know, and you want to help them, but they're like, you don't know how, and they don't want it, so then you end up just smashing your head against the wall while someone else is suffering, and you want to help, but you can't. Yeah, that's honestly one of the worst feelings. So then it just kind of makes you want to dial back and just focus on yourself, which I think people need to do. I have a line where, in some of the presentations I've done, where I talk about how in first aid, like the first step of first aid is the scene survey, if you've ever taken first aid classes. And the scene survey is there to protect the first responder, because if the first responder goes down, then the casualty and the first responder are done for, you know? So who's going to be there to help you if you're not helping yourself? Or, yeah, exactly. Or who's going to help you if they're not helping themselves, kind of thing, you know? So I want the people around me to be, you know, fit mentally and physically. Well, mentally for this particular conversation, but like, yeah, we should all want everybody around us to be in top condition as much as possible and as unstressed as possible, so that if something stressful happens, we can all take care of it. But if everyone's at the fucking peak, everyone's in the red zone, and then something relatively minor happens, and everybody just loses their shit, you know? And I don't want that. I've also compared suicides to canaries in the coal mine, if you've ever heard of that. So in coal mines, they used to put canaries in cages. I don't know why it was canaries, but they put them in cages, and then if the canary died, then you knew it wasn't safe because of the fumes or something like that. Feel free to Google it. I could be wrong, but I think that's the basic idea. But a canary is just a warning system, basically. And like, if we look at suicides, then they should be a warning for everybody around that something's up. So like for me, it was like when it happened to my family, like I had multiple people that had attempts, but for some reason that didn't really click. And it wasn't until my dad did what he did that I was like, oh, okay, this is a pattern I don't like. And then it took me years of like researching and learning about myself to realize what was going on. It was just, we had a family history of undiagnosed mental health conditions like ADHD and autism and stuff. And learning about those has helped me out a lot, and hopefully help my kids out. And that's what I want for everybody. But it is kind of draining always trying to help people that don't seem to want to be helped. But I think it's just when you've been through the looking glass of seeing someone close to you die, then it's just a different world out there. Like, I saw the video of Charlie Kirk like shortly after it happened, like the raw one, unedited. And I saw that and I was like disgusted. Like it was awful. It's an awful video. But then I was thinking about it. I'm like, this is what soldiers have to go through all the time. And like, it was interesting seeing the news commentary, like, oh my God, it was horrific and we're not even going to show it. And it was violent and gory, and it was all that. But then the next thing they'll do is move on to a news story about Ukraine and Russia. I'm like, that the kind of stuff that's going on with Charlie Kirk is happening all the time over there to those boys. And they're either going through it or seeing it. And then you wonder where PTSD, like combat PTSD and what they used to call shell shock comes from. Like just seeing that kind of like horror and stuff all the time. Like I can't even imagine. And I think that's something we're going to have to be looking at, especially this war is not over yet. And a lot of the stuff I've seen, it seems to almost be ramping up with the amount that Russia's like been sending drones into Poland. Like there's a lot of the YouTube channels that I follow on this stuff are theorizing that because Russia had a big meeting with Kim Jong-un or Il, whichever the current one is. And it was Putin and Xi Jinping, and Narendra Modi, I think. Like, basically the whole of Asia pretty much came together. And if Russia's poking at Poland to test NATO's defenses, that tells me he has, like, the backing of China and, like, Iran and some other people, and they want to see where the holes are. And it's up to Europe to decide if they're going to, like... it seems like Poland is leading the way of it, because geographically they kind of have to... because they're the ones getting their airspace invaded. But in my other video, I was talking about how Russia's movements have increased NATO a lot. But then I also talked about the rise of Africa too, and I think we're seeing the fallout of that. Because like Britain's economy and France's economy are not doing well, and a lot of people are blaming that on the fact that Africa's rising and declaring independence from their colonial hosts, if you want to call it that. I don't know what they would like to call it. Probably not hosts, though, would be my guess. The colonizers, I guess, would probably be it. And yeah, they're rising up and like declaring independence, and it's crashing their economies. And I'm like, well, bro, if you have an economy based on that, then you don't really have an economy. I mean, we can't say too much either, like with our temporary foreign worker program, like we're not exactly innocent either. I feel like that was definitely like, I want to say early 2000s or so. I want to say that business leaders kind of realized what was going on as far as populations leveling out and labor being able to demand higher wages for work because of worker shortages. So then they probably lobbied the government to say, like, look, we need to bring in workers to keep wages down or else the economy is screwed. And I'm like, again, if you need an economy that's based on making sure that everybody's got a low standard of living, I'll say, then you don't really have an economy. And they say that about people in business. They're all like, we're taking all the risks, so we should get all the rewards. It's like, yeah, until the risks don't pay off. And then you're begging the government to bail you out, you know. It just always seems to be how it goes. Everyone's against socialism until, like, the whole economy is going to collapse, and then we have to bail everybody out. Whatever, I'm not an economist. But I hate the way we do economies anyway, because it's all based on, like, individual profit. Like, I don't even mind profit. Like, if businesses could just be expected to be profitable, sure. But they don't. Like, the way the economy is, it's all based on perpetual growth, which is unsustainable. Like, especially like my other rant with how world populations are leveling off. If you have an economy based on perpetual growth, but there's not enough people being added to the system, that means each person's cost of living is going to go down and be fed into the system until the people can't take it anymore. And that's where you're seeing it in Nepal. And like, that's inevitable, I think, everywhere, honestly. No place is really immune to it. And like, they say that empires have a 250-year cycle, and U.S. is having their I think they have their 250th coming up, because the Army just had their 250th, and the Army's technically older than the States, so the States is having their 250th soon. And I think everybody can see that globally they're pulling back, and China's stepping up to fill the void. So it's hard to say what's going to happen. I'm trying to think of like the closest comparison we have modern would probably be the fall of the USSR, maybe. Because it could actually be England, come to think of it. Because England, like any empire, pushes their power too far, and then they're too thin, like spread out, and they can't logistically keep doing what they're trying to do. And that's kind of what the US is doing. Like, they have bases all over the place, and like a really big military and biggest defense spending, and probably really well-trained warriors, except for like Ukrainians now will probably be in demand as trainers and maybe mercenaries, but honestly, they just kind of need a break. So I kind of hope this war ends soon and everyone can just calm down, but nothing from what I've seen really gives me too much hope there. I'd really like to think they would calm down, but I feel like now too, like, because the conflict got so big, there's so many countries spooling up their militaries again, which again brings parallels to World War II, because the countries all had these big militaries and all this new technology, and it was only a matter of time before they were going to want to throw it at each other, you know? And part of that's the economy too, because like the arms industry is huge. It's like, well, let me check. So I just did a quick search, and it said all the arms industries combined, or top 100 arms companies combined, generate like 650, well, it said 687 billion in revenue. And it's like, if you have these giant companies making like bank on war, then they're going to have a vested interest in making sure the war happens. And again, I'm not suicidal, and I'm not that clumsy that I'll be falling out of windows anytime soon, but yeah, it's crazy. It's like that movie, Lord of War. That's a really good movie if you want to learn about like the arms industry. It's based on a true story about a guy who I think ended up imprisoned in Russia, and then the US negotiated for his release. And they kind of go over that, like, not that, because the movie came out before that happened. But yeah, that's a really good movie if you ever want to get interested in that, in like arms dealing. It's like The Wolf of Wall Street, but for guns. Can't remember if Margot Robbie's in it. No, it's Bridget Moynihan plays his wife, but yeah. Really good movie. So good. It's the best. Sorry. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. This one was super duper rambly, but I think if you've listened to my podcast, you should be used to it by now. Yeah, thanks for coming out. Bye.